The American farmer working on his tractor. He probably thinks that thing's pretty powerful, and maybe it is, but not compared to what we're doing. We're here at Galot Motorsports Park in North Carolina, and we are gonna go drag racing pulling tractors. On this episode of Put Up or Shut Up, we're combining two of the greatest things in my life, drag racing and tractor pulling. We're gonna do something that we don't think anybody's ever actually done before, which is to take two of the nation's best modified tractors, we're talking 6,000 horsepower machines, and run them heads up against each other. We're gonna do it on dirt, we're gonna do it on a 340-foot long regulation pulling course, and we're gonna do it with a sled behind them. But we're adding the element of speed. Instead of trying to figure out how far past that 340-foot finish line you can go, you need to get there first. This is an absolute heads-up drag race. You know, tractor pulling started back in the 1920s, and it was really started by the tractor companies themselves trying to prove to farmers how much stronger their equipment was than the horses they were using. Well, over time, those farmers would spend endless hours in the fields thinking about how to make their stuff stronger, and in some cases faster. Well, tractor pulling evolved into one of America's most popular motorsports, but it's always a singular activity, and that's what killed me about the sport. Not today. We're adding two tractors, we're adding a heads-up drag race, and we're gonna find out who's got the fastest tractor in North Carolina. So you've met the machines, you've met the background of the world of pulling. Now it's time to meet the drivers. Over here, Randy Davis, he's the owner and the driver of the Running Bear tractor. Keith Wayson, owner and driver of the Super Bee tractor that's sitting right behind him. Fellas, we're going pulling today, but not in the way you've probably ever done in your career. You will have a sled behind you. We will be on a pulling course, but the object is not to go the distance, because you're gonna go the distance. It is gonna be a heads-up style drag race on a flag start. First man to the end wins. Thoughts?
Wow, it's pretty different than what we used to, but I think it'll be pretty fun.
You're a puller, not necessarily a drag racer, but the reality is there's a lot of fine tuning, and getting the balance of this thing right is probably gonna be the key to victory, right?
Well, the biggest thing, you gotta be able to read the track, the dirt, and get your weight straight on the front end. You don't want your front end to come up too high.
So, Randy, do you make any setup changes?
We'd lighten the front end a little bit more so it'll pick the front end quicker in the hole. You're not gonna have as much weight coming on the sled, so therefore down at the other end, you don't have to weight it for the other end. Probably could change tire pressure a little bit.
You know, the tractors visually look pretty similar. You got a pair of Hemis on the front of them. Any advantage, disadvantage you feel like you have?
I don't think it's any advantage, disadvantage. You know, you're going into drag racing style, so you gotta get that launch, you gotta get that whole shot out of the hole, and track conditions and weight and driver.
Absolutely.
Driver.
There's always a plot twist on this show. We're going drag racing. This is the ultimate drag race, put up or shut up style. So as the crew here at Galot gets the track ready, let's take an end-to-end look at Keith Wayson's Super Bee tractor. Right up front, the business end. We have twin 556 cubic inch alcohol burning Hemi engines, 1271 supercharger on top, single magneto, single set of spark plugs, and a giant mechanical fuel pump in the front. There are no electronics allowed in this stuff. One of the most impressive things that you really won't see in any other form of motorsports is the fuel system. There's a series of check valves in here that are tuned to feed the engine fuel at the right time to make the most power. All mechanical, really only found in tractor pulling. The magic of these tractors starts to happen when we get to this part of the unit. This massive deal here is a gearbox, and this is what's used to tie these two engines together. These two engines make about 3,000 horsepower apiece, and the way the power is transferred to the single solid drive shaft is through a series of big billet gears. This is a ballistic blanket. In case this thing were to fail and explode, those gears would end up in the next county. This blanket keeps them from flying off. It's effectively a bulletproof vest for the tractor. Drive shaft, again, is a solid hunk of steel, runs right back here. Now, really fun stuff in the driver's compartment here. Obviously a little teeny-weeny steering shaft, but what's really happening here is these brakes. Normally, this tractor has the front end up as it's going down the course, so in order to actually steer and manipulate it, Keith is going to use these two brake pedals here, and he's going to move it left to right on the course. The other thing we can see in there is the fuel shutoff, and it's a hand throttle. These things are not controlled by the guy's feet, they use their hands. Lastly, the business end of the machine. Humongous Firestone pulling tires, and they use about the same type of rubber compound that they'd use in a forestry tire, so it's really hard and it chips. Rather than giving or even just wearing down like a drag slick, they actually kind of break hunks off them. The wheels, 32 inches in diameter. You can see the weights here, and I guess that's the last point to make. you'll always see weights hanging off the front and back of a pulling tractor. And at the end of the day, this is a sport about balance. Balancing the traction to come off the starting line and then balancing the tractor. If you get the nose too high up going down the course, the thing's gonna be out of control. If you don't get the nose up at all, you're not getting 100% traction on these rear tires. So those weights, they may look like dumb hunks of steel, but that's the real brains of the operation.
Now that you know how one of these things works end to end, we're going to find out not only who has the strongest tractor, but the fastest one. So here's a look at how the tractors stack up next to each other, and as you can tell, they are virtually identical in every way, from the engine displacement to the horsepower levels. Even the tires they use are the same. The weight's going to vary a little, but both of them come in at over 7,000 pounds.
So here we are, it's race one. You can hear all four engines running behind me. The way this is gonna work is easy. It's a heads-up drag race. First tractor to the finish line wins. There's gonna be a lane change each round. The sleds will stay in the same lane. Both tractors came across the scales. They weigh within about 50, 60 pounds of each other, so they're pretty much dead even as far as the weight goes. The real question here is who's gonna figure out the speed? The track is pretty dry. It's a hot day today, so the sun's taking the moisture out. A dry track can be dusty and a little loose. It's gonna be fun to watch this play out. I'm not even sure they got there. We gotta go find out who ended up where. That was awesome. Okay, so here's what we just had happen. That is the finish line. Those are the competitors. Okay, it looks like the running bear actually ended up maybe like a foot or 2 feet ahead of where the Super Bee tractor ended up. I guess we're gonna default to running bear, get around win. He was the furthest. He got the furthest distance on the course by about a Hemi length. Not the way we thought that one was gonna go. It's gonna be fun to talk to the guys and figure out what they thought of the course. It looked really loose.
You know, watching his back loose might have been an understatement. Gallant groomed the track perfectly, but we may have taken a bit too long getting killer beauty footage of the tractors, and the sun actually baked the thing totally dry. The soil crumbled under the tires, and the guys literally went nowhere. Brady Davis managed a peak speed of just over 24 miles an hour, 172 feet into the hook, and Keith Wayson in the Super Bee topped out at just shy of 24 miles an hour, 163 feet into the race. As the weight box started to push down on the rear tires of the tractors and then the big pan hit the ground, you could see that they came to a halt less than 70 feet later. Neither of the drivers looked too happy, and I surely hope one of these guys doesn't punch me in the face. The reality is they didn't make the finish line because they simply didn't have the traction to overpower the friction of the sled. That was ugly.
First off, yikes. Obviously the track was incredibly dry out there. Can you guys explain to the folks watching, why is it so hard to get one of these things to move on a dry track?
It's like running on marbles. Don't have any moisture in the dirt, nothing to bite
To bind it together, and it just kind of goes out from underneath you.
As soon as we come into it, you know, we usually try to lead the line, kind of try to jab the throttle a little bit to blow the tires up, and you could just feel it right there. I don't think neither one of us probably went full throttle right then.
Is there anything you've learned off of that first run to even make any changes to the thing? Or you got to go basically back up there the same way you did?
Basically the same way, because it's going to be a totally different track again.
Absolutely. One of the things I want to talk about too is tires. You actually chunked the tires a little bit, right?
Yeah, it actually hurt the tires pretty bad. You can see them, it start rolling the points back, it'll start rolling the tread back. Pretty much the track was so hard and dry until it really couldn't get in it and grab. It was just actually just burning on top. Sort of like just like a burnout.
Doing a burnout on asphalt, basically. You guys get your service completed. You had a fuel leak. You got that squared away?
Yeah, we had a fitting that cracked, that broke. So yeah, we got that fixed, got that taken care of. So we're just gonna check everything else out and make sure. Beautiful.
We'll have you guys ready to go. They're gonna be done with the track in a couple of minutes, and it'll be fresh, and I promise it'll be perfect this time. More our fault than theirs, because we take an hour and a half to do everything around here. So good luck, boys.
Thank you.
Line them up.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. We'll see you over there.
Thank you.
Before we run him down the course one more time, we're actually going to check out the torture device known as the pulling sled. So the most powerful man in motorsports isn't me. It's actually the operator of the pulling sled, and I'm sitting in the operator's seat right now. It actually looks a lot like the cab of a modern farm tractor because, well, it's the cab of a modern farm tractor. He's in charge of making sure everything's safe, making sure that the tractor is under control, and if it isn't, hitting the kill switch to shut it off. But most importantly, he is going to manipulate the weight box. So what you're looking at here is a Bauer-built sled, and this is really part of the big action. It's the weight box. These 1,500-pound slabs of iron get put in here, and because we're drag racing, we only have 3 in there. We want the tractors to make it to the finish line and get there fast. The craziest thing about this weight box is that it actually moves over the course of the run. How? Well, there's actually a big old truck rear end in there with gears on it and some huge man-sized chains that actually make that box move forward. There's also a transmission in this thing that controls the speed of the box. The faster the box moves forward, the faster the weight gets forced down to the rear of the tractor. There's another giant moving part of this thing that actually some people miss. This, right down here. It's called the pan. This pan is a giant flat steel plate that has a hydraulic ram on the back of it. As the box travels up the sled, it reaches this little trip arm here. When the box hits the trip arm, it forces this pan into the ground. The hydraulic rams take this and put it down. Think of it as like a giant brake. Once that thing hits the ground, the tractor starts to really have to work, and that's when we see the weight of the sled and the friction overcome the tractor's traction. The last thing you're gonna know about the pulling sled is how we attach it to the tractors. And that is with this guy, a huge man-sized chain. This thing is virtually indestructible, and you see these 6,000 horsepower tractors tugging on it. In fact, that sounds like a really good idea. Let's drop the hooks and go on to round number 2. So as we're getting ready for round 2, things have taken a turn for the awesome. And they've actually taken a turn for the awesome because we've removed a bunch of stuff. For starters, we've removed half the weight from the weight boxes on the sleds, which means there'll be half the down pressure on the rear tires, which means there'll be half the resistance for the tractor to get down the racetrack, which means there should be a whole lot more speed. Because there's going to be more speed, we've also removed something else. All the barriers from the top end of our racetrack. Why did we do that? Because these guys should literally be flying on a freshly prepped track that's nice and moist and has plenty of bite. This thing was so dry, you saw the dust clouds and everything. That's why you see the water truck out here. They're gonna douse this thing with water a bunch and then run the disc harrow through it to loosen it up and repack it. We should see the polar opposite of what we saw the first time. Instead of the tractors struggling to get to the finish line, they're gonna be barreling past it, likely at a high rate of speed. This should really, really be awesome, or really, really be bad, which may also really, really be awesome. Watch. Running Bear did run away from him. He got down to the finish line first. We have to go down and check it out. That was rad.
Yes, that is exactly what we were hoping to see. Now we can get a good look at exactly what goes on out there. Looking at both acceleration graphs, we can see that Randy Davis and the Running Bear got a far better start than Keith Wayson in the Super Bee. The result is that Randy made a peak speed of 36.9 miles an hour, 231 feet into the hook, and Keith made a peak speed of 36.8 miles an hour, 224 feet in. If we then graph the lines to show acceleration in seconds, we can see something awesome. Both curves are identical, but they're offset. Why is that? Well, simply put, Randy Davis accelerated the sled harder early, moving the weight box up sooner and triggering the pan of the sled sooner. That's also why his acceleration falls off way before Keith Wayson's. He tripped the sled first. Wayson had the lazier launch, so his tractor took more time to move the weight the same distance, trigger the pan, and stop the whole works. See? Tractor pull drag racing is fun.
All right, so we've reconvened the meeting back up here in the starting line. And first off, guys, that was much more like it. Amazing what a difference some moisture in the prepared track can do for us. Randy, talk to me about your run. You got to the finish line first, so walk me through how you got out of the hole better than Keith did.
You know, we lightened the front end up, the moisture was in the track, got a little bit better hole shot.
He came out more aggressively from the launch, but it looked like mid-track you actually were pulling on him a little bit. It seemed like you were closing the gap up.
Yeah, I was closing quickly. I was coming.
you're going down the top end and you're looking over, right? And not something you normally do during the course of a normal event in that thing.
Well, I mean, Keith is a great competitor. I mean, I know he's coming. I mean, I know he's going to be there regardless. So, it's just like, I didn't know whether it broke, I didn't know what had happened, but, on any given day, either one of these tractors can win.
So, round 3's coming up. This is for pride, man. This is for pride. You want to get down there ahead of this guy. Any change in plans?
Probably put a little bit more weight on the back. The front end didn't get up very high.
So a little bit more weight on the back. You're going to make any changes?
I don't think I'll make any changes. I think if anything, it will come a little bit more aggressively and be a little bit more aggressive in the middle.
Running Bear's got 2 notches in his belt. This man right here is looking for 1, and he's going to try to close it out here in round 3. All right, well, you can hear it. The shadows are getting long here in North Carolina. We got one last rip down the racetrack. These guys didn't have to do this. Running Bear kind of already got it with the round 1 distance win and then the round 2 runaway win. But Keith Wayson didn't want to give up so easy. These guys are competitors, and frankly, I'd watch this happen 100 times a day, so to see it 3 times is a win. Kind of interesting, they're back in their original lanes, the lanes that they ran in the Dust Bowl course with, so we'll find out if they've got their tune-ups right. They did both move a little weight around, so we should see some good wheels-up action. This is so freaking cool, man. This is cool. We've done a lot of neat stuff at the show so far, but this, I think, is a topper. And it's the slowest stuff we've ever done, by a mile. All right, both guys are ready. They took the slack out of the chains. Here it comes. That was a 3-fer. He came by us with the front end 3 feet in the air. Oh, that was what a way to end it. I mean, that was the best way possible to end it.
So this last run was basically academic, but man, look at Randy Davis delivering again. A speed of 41 miles an hour achieved in just 227 feet on dirt. It's amazing stuff, and even more amazing when we compare it to what the graph looked like from the first hook. That was ugly. This was a thing of beauty.
Running Bear ran the table today. He got him on distance in the first one. He got him to the finish line stripe at the drag race the next 2 times. And Keith Wayson was right there with him this time. It was the closest match out of the 3, so it's a fantastic way to end the show. Tractor pull drag racing. You saw it here first. It's the slowest and coolest thing we've ever done on this show. Follow us on Facebook at Put Up or Shut Up Show. Follow us on Instagram at Put Up or Shut Up Show. We are all about mismatched mechanical mayhem, whether we're talking about crazy matchups with different machines or taking the same machines and putting them in a weird format. We hope you love this episode. We'll be back with more soon from who knows where, doing who knows what. I'm out.